Philips 90 AL 970, 1980. This is the documentation of the experience of a hobby project, made with the hope that it could be helpful to others. But any comment that could help me to improve my practice is also welcome and appreciated. Unlike other videos in this series, this particular one shows a simple fixing and cleaning process, and there is no extra written documentation attached to it. According to DocDSF, this radio appeared at least with two different brand names, Philips and Radiola. The Philips service manual also reports the existence of various runs. In particular, some of these runs used an AM intermediate frequency of 468 kHz, the others 455 kHz. This radio covers the bands long wave, medium wave, short wave, and FM, with fine-tuning for all the AM bands. There is a detailed service manual available online, for example at DocDSF, and the schematic diagram is fairly complex. This radio arrived damaged and non-working. In particular, in its life, it must have been modified for connecting an external antenna for the long wave and medium wave bands, which otherwise would be received only through an internal ferrite antenna. Because this modification was also broken, it was removed before starting any other process. The screws holding the back panel are removed. A few of them are missing. Inside the case, there is this enameled copper wire connected with an additional coil inserted in the ferrite antenna. This was clearly a modification. The modification is incomplete and unnecessary. Therefore, it will be removed. But before that, the connections to the back panel are removed. They are the telescopic antenna, the power transformer, and the battery compartment. This is the extra coil that was found, which disappears in the next clip, without consequences. The ferrite antenna is loose, and it is fixed using small zip ties. In order to separate the main board from the case, there are some screws to remove, but also the knobs for the fine-tuning and the band selection switch should be extracted. Unfortunately, too many wires are connected to the board from all over the place, and it is not advisable to unsolder all of them unless absolutely necessary. The radio was tested before, but it didn't work, and it was noticed that the power on switch was not working. Here the switch is tested again using a multimeter. Consequently, the small board containing switches, tone and volume controls is removed, with the purpose of getting access to the switches. The switch is removed and tested separately. A short jump wire is installed temporarily in place of the missing switch, and the radio is tested. There is life in all bands. The other switches installed on the small board are removed too. They also seem defective. Because the boards are loose, and very likely resolving the switch issues will fix the radio electrically, the occasion for cleaning should not be wasted. The switches removed from the small board are cleaned initially with the usual methods, but the original power switch still shows issues. Therefore, it is carefully dismantled and cleaned more thoroughly. One of the contacts shows signs of wear. The usable side of the switch is marked with a white permanent pen. The switch is reassembled. The other two switches are dismantled and cleaned in the same way, but off camera. The cleaned switches are installed again on the small board, but the original power switch is swapped with the mute one because the mute function will be disabled, shorting it to the off position. The original switches have a plastic cover divided in two parts. One protects the switch from dust. The other is for aesthetics. These plastic components are cleaned before reinstalling them. Also, the long band switch needs attention. Some Vaseline oil is introduced with the help of a small paintbrush. The switch on the back selecting between radio and tape is crucial for the correct functioning of the item, and it deserves as much attention as the others. Some Vaseline oil is carefully put between the contacts with a little paintbrush. This particular switch on top of the radio is used to illuminate the dial scale. The main board is reinstalled on the front panel using its screws. This radio must have fallen because one piece of the back panel, holding one side of the handle, was broken. That was already repaired in the past, but it did not hold. An attempt is made to glue it again on the residues of the previously used glue, but that does not work and the superglue does not get activated. Without other resources, some baking soda is used with superglue. Luckily, this works even though the result is not pretty, but that would not be visible because it would remain inside the case. The residues of baking soda are cleaned using alcohol. The cabinet is cleaned externally, initially using alcohol, but later also Vaseline oil. an old toothbrush, a small paintbrush, cotton balls, and cotton swabs are useful tools. After cleaning, the handle is installed again using its springed C-clips. The radio is slowly reassembled. The power transformer, the battery compartment, and the external antenna are connected again to the main board. The item arrived without the original telescopic antenna. The plan is to reuse an antenna coming from an old portable television set. However, it must be adapted for fitting in the original base, still present in the radio. For fixing the antenna, a metric screw M2.5 is needed. The new antenna is smaller and shorter than the original one, but it will be okay. This radio model allows to set 4 pre-selected FM stations, tuning each one with a separate potentiometer accessible from the rear.
Forse sfoggerai tutte le tue doti degli utenti, delle recensioni. Amazon ha fatto causa
Unfortunately, these potentiometers are only single-turn, and each one of them covers the whole FM band. Therefore, it is difficult to get a reliable tuning this way.
Vi vengo in aiuto io. Un equilibrio, ci devono essere tante.
A thought was given to the possibility of collecting the signal related to the AEM bands from the local oscillator for reading the tuned frequency on an external counter capable of subtracting the intermediate frequency value. Experimenting, a signal that was sufficiently clean was collected with a small coil only in the area of the IF transformer S7, which is used in the FMIF chain and not for the AM. Moreover, collecting a signal in that area for the second shortwave band, the frequency appeared to be half of what it should have been. It would work, except for the second shortwave band, but in the end the plan was not put into practice. The radio is tested indoors in the evening, relying exclusively on the small telescopic antenna for the FM and the 2 shortwave bands, and on the ferrite antenna for the medium wave and long wave bands. The test starts from the FM band.
Sugli esterni. Perfect Symphony. Credo di massima stabilità. Storie maestranze. Su questa oppure sì, in Giappone il corteggiamento una donna di varie responsabilità. Tantissimi prodotti. Mentre noi si gottigliavano e passavano al chiodo a lavorare, quindi Marco mi sembra più che fan della nostra Radio del Cuore. Un anno nuovo Matara. Sul cronometro in questo terzo quarto, sogno. Sonare c'è la voglia di raccontarsi e di avere una relazione seria.
Campagna del Ministero delle Infrastrutture e dei Trasporti.
Contesto plurale.
Anni di storia. Sei lo
Lo vediamo e la sua luce ci brucia. Perché poi lui è un fotografo, non riuscirà mai a fare.
Shortwave 2, from 9.5 to 21.8 megahertz. Tuning stations in the two shortwave bands is difficult, due to the physical mechanism of the dial. However, there is a fine-tuning potentiometer there to help.
Anticipadas. Las protestas se centraron en torno al edificio del Ministerio de Defensa.
Shortwave 1, from 2.3 to 7.3 megahertz.
Asfaltın dışarı gidiyor. Kataj politik.
Vengono sì tecnologia e registri. Nell'UDI albergo è distribuita in der locali al-Hafida i relicoli. 995 AD.
Путешествие по Китаю. У микрофона ведущая Мария. Продолжаем наш рассказ.
Also enthusiastically adapt. 我想去没有啊。每天500元，请问您住几天？后来请提问。
Medium wave band.
Bravi, c'è stata la voglia di rimanere in partita. Vamos para allá.
Ukretil. Jutranje temperature bodo od nič do 7 v prevetrenju.
Azt mondtam, hogy pedig nemzeti színház.
Long wave.